What's up?
What's up, bro?
Not much. I'm like eating lunch because I'm starving, but that's how
Well,
this is.
hopefully the connection works since you're outside.
I'm literally like right next to the house. So
Okay.
if it's really bad, I can go inside. But
Just
yeah, I was just like, it's freaking insane weather today. Like low 70s, almost no humidity. I love it.
yeah, that's kind of how it is over here, but got a little bit warmer today. And then I think tomorrow is supposed to
Mm.
get to 90, so we're getting a little taste of summer before we get back into fall. You know how Iowa
Oh
is.
yeah.
You've lived here.
Oh, oh yeah. I miss it every day.
It's bipolar.
It is. It is. I
So,
will tell you when you miss it.
yeah. Well, so how are you liking Washington, D.C.?
Honestly, it was a great move. I don't regret it. It's really hard being like making friends is really hard, and that's like I every time I've moved, I've had making friends sort of built in, and now it's not anymore. Like I have to like put in the work, and so that's been a little bit of a challenge, but I'm figuring it out, learning how to make friends again in the real world, and it's good. I love it. I every day I pinch myself. Like my commute home, I pass the Lincoln Memorial and the Pentagon. I work 3 blocks from the White House. Like every day, I'm like, this is my actual reality.
Yeah, that's insane, dude.
I love it. I love it, and it's kind of fun because like I've never lived in a tourist location before. So like it's always been like, hey, if you're passing through and you want to see me, like, please stop by.
Mm,
Now it's like, oh no, you can actually like come here, visit me, and do things. And it's like a cool place that like people might actually want to see.
yeah.
So that's like, that's taken some getting used to, that's for sure. But I love it so much.
Well, I think that was like one of the barriers that you and I ran into when we were hanging out in Indy. Like all we would really do is go on our walks. Now you have some different places
Hmm.
to explore, and I'm sure you don't run out of things to do.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're from Indianola, I mean, by the time you hit high school and maybe even your first few years of college, I mean, you've really experienced everything that Indianola has to offer. You know, there's not much to do.
Yeah. I will say the one thing that I really miss about living in Iowa is the sense of familiarity. Like I haven't had that in since I left Iowa in May. Like I just haven't felt at home.
Yeah.
And I know that that comes with time, and I didn't feel that when I first moved to Iowa. In fact, I was in denial that I had moved to Iowa for like a good like 2 years when I first moved. So
That's a long
it
time
does,
to deny.
I do aspect of it. Like yeah, I was, a bratty elementary schooler. Let me tell you, I'm going to actually take this all inside.
Okay.
I'm thinking this is going to be like, this is a nice idea in thought, but like
I say the connection is a
also
little
not
spotty.
totally work. I'll fix it. Hold
I don't know if that's on your end or my end. It
on.
probably
Oh,
could be both.
well, could be both, honestly. Let's see. You're about to, if there's any dog barking, I apologize. I'm dog sitting right now for the spawn of Satan. I'm not kidding. This dog, let's just say that I have dogs sitting. It's just been a,
Man, we're
let's
cutting
see.
out
Okay.
like none other.
How is this? Oh
Uh,
no. Oh no. Okay. How about now? Is this better?
I guess we'll see.
Is this better? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Okay, that's a little bit more stable.
Okay. Well, I'm inside now, so
Um,
that's all
so,
good.
so how has your with the move and everything? what have your anxiety levels been like? Has there been some big challenges that you had to get through? Fill me in on
Yes.
that journey of mental health.
Let's be honest. My mental health has had its highs and its lows. Um, a lot of that came from I I don't do well with change, and the nature of my move was such that I didn't have a constant, really. I mean, I had like one and that was it. So the way it worked was I moved to Pittsburgh with my parents, mainly to be closer to DC and because I didn't really have anything keeping me in Iowa. Like there was no reason for me to stay behind in Iowa by myself. So I moved to Pittsburgh and was there for 6 weeks and had like a little gig where I worked at an outdoor pool, which I am like the biggest water freak and outdoor freak there is. Like I love being outside. I love being outside on the water. And so it was good. There were some definite challenges with that. And so was there, but like as I was there the whole time, it was just knowing that I'm going to move again and I don't know when I'm going to move again. And then I did learn that I was going to need to delay my start date because my job, basically, they said, look, we want to hire you, but we can only hire you when we're in person. So your start date is a big TBD. And so I basically just hung out. Well, I got this job in Pittsburgh, and with this job, it meant that I couldn't start when they actually reopened. So they reopened June 28th, and I was coaching a swim team, and their season wasn't done until July 15th, and I was the head coach. So it wasn't like I could just be like, see ya mid-season. So that was really stressful, like working more than full time in multiple positions at this pool and trying to figure out my housing situation for when I would move here. So we negotiated that my start date for work would be July 19th. So I finished up on July 15th, which was a Thursday, and had Friday to sort of gather myself, pack, and Saturday I moved. And Monday I started work, which I don't like downtime. So this was, it sounds crazy, but I did actually, like, this was the best move. And so after a lot of hunting, I found what seemed like a pretty good fit. It's an apartment that is in an area that's not metro accessible. So you can live really close to DC for fairly inexpensive. Like it's not super expensive to live there, but you do need to utilize the bus system and the metro system in order to get into DC unless you drive in. So I found this place, but the girl that was moving out, so there's two girls in this apartment who have been there for 3 years. And the girl that was moving out right around the time school was going to start. And so I needed to move in the weekend of July 16th, and she wasn't able to leave then. And so I needed to find sort of an interim place to live, which, like, the number of times that I've had to change where I live and like live in uncertainty is just insane at this point. So after a lot of searching for temporary housing, after solidifying this more permanent housing, we decided that I would live with my dad's friend from when he lived out here. And I'm actually at their house right now. This is the house I lived in for a temporary period of time. And I'm dog sitting for them this weekend. But yeah, so lived here from that weekend until the weekend right before Labor Day weekend. That weekend I moved into my apartment, and so I've been in my apartment ever since. It was a little weird because I moved in the weekend before Labor Day, and then because of work, they're very generous with their days off. So we had 5 days off for Labor Day because we had Labor Day itself, we had the weekend, they gave us Friday, and then Juneteenth was announced as a national holiday, like right around the day of Juneteenth. And so they decided that it was too disruptive to work schedules to observe it on the day. So this year they tacked it onto Labor Day weekend so that everyone could like enjoy the day. That won't happen next year, but it was still super nice. So I ended up going back to Pittsburgh that weekend, and I got to see my cousin play soccer, which was super fun. And it was helpful because in the move, my parents were like moving me blind, which I give them full credit. They were moving me. But like, I wasn't there in Pittsburgh to say, I want this, I want that. And I also didn't know what I needed. So like, they forgot several things that I would need, like my trash cans for my bedroom. They, you know, like my contacts ended up with them. Like, so it ended up being good that I was only in my apartment for 3 days. And then I went back to Pennsylvania and was there for 5 days. But it also meant that I just didn't feel settled really until after Labor Day. And now I'm sort of settling into a routine there. And so with that side of things, anxiety has sort of been like constantly there, but it definitely ebbs and flows. Like, there are times where it is more stressful and there are times where it's less stressful. But I think one of the biggest causes of anxiety in my life right now is just, I want friends. I'm a social person. You know this about me. I'm like such an extrovert, and finding friends is really hard, especially like when you move to a place. Like, I was assuming that when I moved to DC, that DC has a very transient population. So people move here and move out of here frequently. So I assumed that there would be like a population like me, like, hey, I'm new to DC. And I have not met a single person that is in that population. Basically, everyone I know here either grew up here, grew up in Virginia. So like, they're in the state. I live in Virginia. So clarify that I'm not in a Maryland suburb, but they like, they're just, everyone seems to have like a very established life. And I fear rejection. And so I'm scared to reach out to people that have an established life. Like, one of my coworkers is one of the most amazing human beings I've ever met. And like, I love her to death. She lives in like way out in the middle of nowhere, Maryland, and commutes in. And that's where she's from. She's from that part of Maryland. And it is far, number one. And number two, she has like all of her friends are there, like her boyfriend's there, like her whole family's there. And so like, I am hesitant to reach out to her and be like, hey, do you want to do something? Because she does have a life and she has things that she can do. And so part of it is I need to get over that. But it's also just like, I don't know, like, I just wish it was easier sometimes to like make friends and make like good quality friends.
Yeah.
So slowly but surely it's happening. It's just taking a little bit longer, but.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're doing well. And if that's your biggest issue, then I think you're going to be fine. I mean,
Yeah.
I was always afraid to leave. And I don't know if you saw my latest YouTube post, but I'm going out to Utah next week. And I'm only out there for a week, but you know, I'm fucking terrified because there are things that can go wrong. I'm going by myself and you're in a foreign place. You don't have people like in India. I mean, you don't have people that you can rely on. And that's pretty scary. It's good that you had your job and you got to meet people that way. So it's not like you don't know anybody, but you're kind of at the point where you're afraid to breach the next step of like, hey, asking this chick like, hey, you want to grab some coffee on the weekend when we're not working? But our society is so ass backwards that, you know, that's just so hard to do nowadays in general. I mean, I ran into that problem here at Simpson my last year. Like, and then on top of that, you have COVID. You throw the mask in there. It's fucking hard to do.
Yeah, it's really hard because like, so my dad did his 20s in DC. And so he had a very different experience than I did in the sense that he lived in the district itself. He lived and worked in Capitol Hill, which is a hip hopping place. And he lived in a group house, and it was like an intentional group house. Like, we're going to live in this house and we're going to like not just be ships passing in the night. Like, we're going to actually like have dinner together. Like, it was sort of like an intentional community deal. So he was very much more connected than I am, but he was just talking about like, you know, there are always things to do in DC, like always. And I'm just like, really? I'm sure there are. I just haven't found them. Like, there aren't like, I'm not aware of the events. And the thing is now, you know, back then, he was in a very, like, he worked on Capitol Hill, he worked for a congressman, like he heard about all of the different events that were going on. I am in the basement of the International Monetary Fund. Like, there's the basement, then there's another floor, then there's another floor, then there's me. Like, so I don't really, I'm in the dungeon. There
Oh,
literally are no windows.
you need
It's
to get
pretty
you out of
crazy.
there, see the sunshine.
I know, I spend every weekend outside because I'm like, I don't see the sun. I drive home with my windows down. Like, if it's not raining, yeah, it's crazy. But I don't hear about these events. And nowadays it's all about what you like on Facebook. And so if you like certain pages on Facebook, they publish like, hey, this is going on this weekend. But like, I just felt like I wasn't connected to the right things. And so like, it is harder to meet people when you don't have those resources. But I was talking to a girl who I know through some very weird connections. I'd never met her in person before, but I knew of her. And she was saying that with COVID, a lot of the events that normally happen just aren't happening right now. So there is a wrench with COVID here, but also COVID is managed more here. So like,
I
I
don't
feel like
understand
things
because
aren't crazy out of control right now, which is
yeah,
kind of nice.
but I don't understand that because we've been dealing with COVID now for a year and a half. So how have people not been able to figure out like to not be able to have an event? I mean, you see now like all these sports events are now having full capacity people, and I know like some teams are requiring that you get a vaccination, but for the most part, I feel like not that it's gone 100% normal, but I feel like people are making an attempt to have events again. So how why are they still like not having events in DC?
They are, it's just not as many.
Oh,
And I think part of that has to do with, I don't know exactly which ones I'm missing out on because, hello, I'm new here. But I think I have to wonder if some of it is just finances. Like, COVID hit financially very hard
mm,
for a lot of places. And so they may not have the finances to put forth an event that they would put on normally. So that's my only guess. A lot of events are happening in DC. It's not like there's none. Like, there are plenty of things going on in DC, but it's just like, I'm not super aware of them. And so I'm also trying to figure out like how I want to meet the people that I want to be friends with. Like, there's some like thought that's going into this. Like, if I go to a like spin class and I meet somebody at that spin class, there's a very good likelihood that I'm going to be friends with that person because we have the common interest of working out. And so, you know, you and I have talked about this, like, where you meet people says something about that person, and it also gives you a common ground for like talking. So now it's like, I have to be the one that puts myself in those situations. And my cousin, actually, it was so crazy. She was telling me that she was reading this book, and in this book, I don't remember what the title of the book was, but basically it was talking about, if you are in a public place and you get this feeling in your gut, like, I should say something to that person in front of me in line, or the person behind me in line, or you just get this gut feeling that you should say something to somebody, just like start a conversation, that means you're supposed to.
yeah.
And literally, she was in this coffee shop that I've actually been to in DC. It's a really cool coffee shop, but the nature of this coffee shop is that the seats are very spread out. Like, they're like little nooks where you can work, you can read, whatever, but they're very spread out so that you have your space. And that was like even pre-COVID. Like, it's a very spread out coffee shop because it's huge. And this guy, like, as she's reading this book in this coffee shop, this guy comes over and like sits in her section. And she's like, this guy does not know the norms of this coffee shop. You are intruding in my space. And then she like got that feeling like, I should say something to this guy. Like, he came and sat here, and like literally no one does that. I should like introduce myself. And she did. She introduced herself because she had literally just finished reading this part on this book, like about how she should do it. So she's like, I'll try it. They connected on every single level possible. Like, it was insane. Like, she was like, this guy, I swear, he was like my best friend and I just met him. And it just sort of made me think like, oh, maybe that's one of the ways I meet friends is like, because I get that feeling a lot and I never act on it because one, I'm like awkward and and two, I'm just like, what do you say? Like, I get that feeling and then my mind immediately goes to, but what would I say?
Yeah, it shuts you
Like,
down, it paralyzes you.
yeah, but I'm just like, that is so freaking crazy. Like, I almost feel like I need to try it, but I haven't had an instance yet where I would. Because, like, at work, I can say something, but like, it's, you know,
Yeah.
it's different.
No, I truly believe in that. That's actually the way that I met Samantha was in the coffee shop, and I heard her talking to like an older gentleman. His name is Austin, who comes in there all the time. And they were talking about Milo because she's from Milo, and I was editing video for like a podcast or something or Music Monday, and so I mean I wasn't like eavesdropping, but I kind of heard that, and then I was like, oh, okay, and I was like, oh, she's kind of cute, but that wasn't my reason to go up and talk to her. I actually was
Hmm.
talking to Ashley and whoever else was working in the back, and I was like taking my time while she was still sitting out there. And then as I was leaving, she was getting up and I said, hey, are you from Milo? I overheard your conversation. I said, I know a bunch of people from Milo. And that transformed into like a 20-minute conversation about like photography and travel and, you know, just sort of the things that she's into. And like that girl said, her and Samantha and I both acknowledged this, that it felt like we had known each other for a long time. Like it was like
Hmm.
souls that like when we had this first conversation, like you seem familiar. Like I feel like I've talked to you before in a different lifetime, and it's just weird how those things work out. So I agree. I think it's a gut instinct that you kind of have to follow. That's why I think the gut is so powerful. They've actually done study. Well, they know that the brain is attached to the gut, so the gut feeling is not foreign. Like we think that like we've dumbed our senses as human beings, but really gut instinct, that's your there's some sort of intelligent design to that that's telling you to go in this direction for a certain reason. And I don't know why that is. I mean, maybe we're symbiotic and we feed off of each other's energy. So it's not like I could read Samantha and be like, oh yeah, she's into all these things. She just something about her aura that made me want to go up and talk to her, and I did it, and it turned out to be great.
Dang. Yeah, see, I had a similar situation to that with my job that I have now. So I interviewed, you know this, I interviewed for, I lost track of the number of positions. I think it was like 10 in the span of 8 months. And it was like all of the positions were basically the same. And it was just like different clients and different companies and whatnot. And I interviewed for the position that I have currently, July 2020, June or July. And I left the interview, like obviously it was virtual, but I like did it in an interview room at Simpson because we were moving and it was a mess. And I walked out of the room and my mom or my dad had come over to like let me into Kent so I could get into the room. And he goes, how do you think it went? And I said, this is the job I want. I can't explain why, can't tell you why, but I knew from the day in June or July 2020, this is the job that I wanted. And every interview that I did after this interview, I just knew it wasn't the one I wanted. The one I wanted was the one I have now at IMF. Like, and the thing is, like, they even emailed me, like, they were very candid, very open. But like after they said in one of their emails to me that after I interviewed, they stopped the interview process and they said that I was the one they wanted. So it was like we were both like we want each other, like this is what we want. And my dad was like kind of tried to sway me a little bit, like when I actually got the offer. I got the offer for the job I have now in January or February of 21, so earlier this year. And they have been very candid, very open, very honest in the process. And part of the contract stated that I could not work for them while they were virtual. So I had to wait till they were in person, which meant that the start date on the contract I signed was basically like they put in a date and then had like fine print that basically just said, look, due to the pandemic, we just don't know. We are legally required to put a start date, but we don't want to pull some date out of our butts. Like, we're just going to put this date and, you know, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to just hang out until we reopen. And my mom was out of town at the time, and my mom is my biggest cheerleader. Like, my dad is my cheerleader too, but my dad is much more like hesitant. And so I come home from work at the Y and I'm on cloud nine. Like, I got a job offer from the job I've wanted since I interviewed for them. And my dad goes, I don't like it. And I was like, why? He goes, because there's no start date. Like, I feel like they're kind of like, they could take the position from you. And I was like, yeah, but the contract also states that I can leave at any point in time. So like, I can sign this contract and keep interviewing for positions. And if something better comes up, I can take that, because in the contract, it does say that both the employer and the employee have the right to back out at any time. And so I was like, look, he still felt shady about it. I talked to my mom about it. My mom is always like, you know, woman's intuition, trust your gut. And she was like, no, this is the one. This is the one. And I was like, yeah, no, it is. Like, every job interview I did after that, I was like, it's not IMF. It's not IMF. Here I am in September, almost October 2021, literally working in my dream job with some of the best people in the industry. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, there is something seriously valid about gut feelings. And I feel like that's something that my mom always told me, like, you know, when it came to dating or friendships or anything like that, my mom was always like, you know, I do think that you can give people second chances. I do think that you can, you know, do all of that. But I do think that there is something to be said for your gut feeling. And so my mom has always kind of, you know, pounded into my brain, go with your gut, like, trust your gut, it will work out. And honestly, most of the time it has. Like,
Yeah.
It's so crazy. I'm just like, I don't know. I do second guess it still, but like,
Well, the whole terminology around going with your gut seems like, I don't know, it almost sounds mystical, and I think that's why people don't believe it as much, but
mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think there's something to it. I mean, I was just even thinking about when I went up to Ames and all the shit that happened up there, and I'll tell you, like, before I moved up there, like, now when I look back at it, I'm like, it never really felt right. And I'm not saying that, I mean, I guess it's not a bad idea to not follow your gut, because you'll still learn something in the process. Like, I got my ass
Mm-hmm.
beat up there. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think there's something true to that. I don't know why I was like drawn towards Samantha. And again, in my head, it wasn't really like I was like, my thought process was not like, oh, I'm going to go up to her and I'm going to get her number. Like, I obviously thought she was attractive, but it was more so like, it's something unspoken. It's something that you can't really, you just feel it. You just feel it inside you and you're like, fuck it, dude. Like, I got to go for it. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that kind of goes along with the line of thinking of like religion. So then I became religious this summer, and not that everything happens for a reason, but I feel like that's kind of part of it is, you know, that those situations are put in front of you and you feel it and you go for it.
Yeah.
And you make the most of
No, I fully agree with that. And like, that's part of like what I'm trying to do now. Like, for instance, I had an opportunity to go on a day trip yesterday, and um it was going to be like a really fun day trip with like some people that I don't know and some people I do know, but the people I don't know are friends with the people I do know, so that kind of like vets them. And I opted not to go because on Friday at work, I was just like talking to my coworker who, like, I trust her opinion. I totally value that. And I was just like, last weekend was so fun and like filled my soul to the brim because it was full of social interaction. And it was so like, I was so busy the whole weekend and I loved it. But I honestly went into the week just kind of feeling like I didn't have enough, like I was running on momentum basically. And steam ran out halfway through the week. And by Thursday and Friday, I was dragging. And so I opted to not go on this day trip. And I have the excuse of I'm dog sitting. And I said no because I wanted some time to chill this weekend. And honestly, I don't know if that was the right choice. I think it was because I got to paddleboard for an hour and a half on a beautiful reservoir. And I got to see I've never seen crew is a thing out here. So like rowing, it's like a high school sport. So I got to see a high school team practice. And let me tell you, that's an experience. It's so crazy. They're all in their little like canoe. And then the coaches are in this little motorboat with this little like megaphone. They're like, Cole, shoulders down, relax. Like,
yeah, go to our coach.
And then they'll be like, Ben, you good? Give me a thumbs up. Okay. And like, then they'd be like, okay, now we're going to go for like this little bit and then we'll talk again. And so like the guys would row for like a good little bit and then the motorboat would come up with them. The coaches would like talk them through it and then they'd stop and they'd have like a little debrief session. I was like, this is so crazy. Like, this is so foreign to me. So that was super fun. And like, I did enjoy my day yesterday, even though there were several downs in it, but like, it was good. But, there's this, was that my gut feeling that I should, like, because I want to trust my gut, but I also don't know what's my gut and what's not. And so like, I don't know if ultimately I'm not going to go back and change the fact that I didn't go on the trip yesterday.
Yeah.
But there's part of me that's always like, at this point in my life, I'm always like, well, did I just miss the opportunity to meet my best friend? Or did I just miss the opportunity? Or if I did, is there going to be another opportunity in the future? Like, because
I really think it's a balancing act. And I also think that trusting your gut is a muscle that you have to develop. So, like I said, I think our culture and society have blinded people through the means of, for men, young men, it's pornography. A lot of people our age are addicted to social media, or I would say just don't have good morals. So they're not really in touch. I would almost call that your spiritual side. And I think it's a balance. So for you, if you were feeling kind of like you were dragging and you needed a day off, I don't think that's bad. I mean, you may be ignoring your gut, but you also want to be, at least for me, like when I'm around people, I want to be in my most optimal state of mind. I think that's one of the areas where a lot of my anxiety goes awry because, I always want to have like control over situations. So I've noticed that a lot of my control comes from, I want to control people's perceptions of me. That's why there's so much social anxiety. But I think that you have to have a balance. So there's nothing wrong with saying, okay, hey, I need the weekend off. I need to decompress. I don't need to be around people. Because you are the definition of an extrovert. But at the same time, I think all of us have a little bit of extrovert in us and a little bit of introvert. So there's nothing wrong with being around people because that fills up your cup. You get that social requirement. But at the same time, if you don't balance that out, you're giving too much to other people and you're not using enough time to be alone and be with yourself and to recharge. And honestly, I feel like this summer for me personally, I really got better with being comfortable being alone. That's something that I think a lot of people don't spend time doing nowadays. And they feel like they constantly have to be around people. They have to be in relationships, even though they just went through a breakup. And it's like, it's a scary feeling to sit with yourself and just analyze your thoughts. I'm like one of the most anxious thinkers probably out there. And I still have issues, but I'm more comfortable being alone. And I know that stuff will just pass. So I don't think you did anything wrong by saying, hey, like, I'm just going to take a day off.
Yeah, that was sort of a battle that I've been fighting for a while, is I don't like to be alone. I like my alone time, but like, I think my dad said it best. My dad was like, you like to be alone in your room with the door shut. but you like there to be noise on the other side of the door, so that
people
you know that at any point, if you were just done with alone time, you could go be with people. And honestly, that is how I am. Like, I do have my extroverted side. I'm like super extroverted, but I also have like this desire to be alone, but not for that long. And right now, because I'm still making friends and, you know, people are busy and they have their lives, I'm struggling with the idea that I have to get comfortable doing things alone if I want to do them. Like, if somebody says no to going on a hike, going paddleboarding, whatever it is, I have to decide, do I do it alone or do I not do it and sit and feel sorry for myself? And ultimately, I'm like, well, I'll do it alone. But it's not as fun, you know? Like yesterday, I bailed on the trip, and one of my friends who was not really wanting, like, she wanted to go on the trip, but she had family in town and they were leaving, and she was just like, I'm gonna have to drive out to this part of Maryland that we were going to by herself. She was gonna have to cut through DC, which is, if you're going to a certain place in DC, it's not that bad. If you're driving through the district, it's like, yeah, no, it's not worth it. And so I think she was like, kind of like, I might go, I might not go. So I reached out to her and I was like, hey, I don't think I'm going to go on this trip. Do you want to go paddleboarding? She was like, actually, like, I don't think the timing will work out, but like, go for it. And I did. I went paddleboarding by myself, and paddleboarding is something I've gotten more comfortable doing by myself, but like, I have a 4-day weekend coming up, because I just found out. So we get like all of these crazy holidays off. So like, we get Columbus Day off, but then because it's the IMF, we get Friday before Columbus Day off. So I have a 4-day weekend, the 8th through the 11th. And I was like, well, a lot of people are going to be working on that Friday. And a lot of people may still be working on that Monday, because not everyone works for the government. And not every government agency is going to say Columbus Day is off. So what do I do with that weekend? Do I do something on my own? Do I hang out with friends when I can? Like, it's this thing where like, I know I would have more fun doing it with someone, whatever it may be. But I also haven't fully, like, in some situations, I have gotten comfortable doing things by myself. Like, I'm totally comfortable to go to a workout class I've never been to by myself. Like, that was something I overcame in college when I started going to boxing. Like, I went to boxing by myself, and it was scary a little bit, but it was so great and I don't regret it. And here, like, I went to my first cycle bar class on Thursday because I'm getting certified in spin as we speak. And I was like all hyped up after doing my certification. I was like, I'm gonna go to a spin class. I'm so ready. And I went to this spin class by myself because I wanted to go at 4:30 because I have weird hours. And I was like, you know, I had something else planned that night, and I was like, I get off work at 3. The class is at 4:30. It's a 5-minute walk from my apartment to the cycling studio. I'm just gonna go. One of my roommates goes there all the time. She wasn't gonna be home, and I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna go on my own. That is something I'm comfortable doing. I am not super comfortable just being like, yo, I'm gonna go do the museums in DC by myself today. That is something where I'm like, I'm not super comfortable with that. I applaud the people that are like, I take myself out to dinner by myself. I'm like, that's a new level. I can't do that. I mean, I could if I wanted to, but it's like, that's the type of stuff where it's like, I could take myself out to dinner, but I know that I would get way more joy out of the whole experience if I went with somebody. Like, so yeah, I get where you're coming from on that whole like being comfortable being alone thing, and I feel like you're like way farther down that path than I am.
Well, and so again, I mean, it's like a double-edged sword. So like this whole summer, I feel like there's been this explosion for me in like discipline and growth and like challenging myself and getting uncomfortable and being alone. But I've gone so far down that rabbit hole that I don't give myself enough time to be around other people or to just even allow myself to have fun. So that's why I say with anything in life, it's a balance, because I envy the people that can go out with friends on a Friday night or a Saturday night and have some beers and just relax. Like, that's just not feasible to me. Like, I don't know why, but I don't really relax around people. And that's why it was so refreshing to meet a girl like Samantha, because I felt like I finally had somebody that connected, that like understood me. And I was getting myself to this point, like when I was with Jaden, I still had some issues, like with being comfortable around her, and like if there was any silence when we were talking. I fucking hate silence. I hate silence in a conversation. I feel like I have to fill the gap all the time. And with Samantha, you know, not to try and compare the two, but because we saw on that level, you know, there were times where we just, I mean, the first like 3 times we hung out, we'd be talking for like 3 or 4 hours, and it would be just platonic. And we had so much to talk about. And so, like I was saying, you know, it's a balancing act. Like, I don't give myself enough reason to go out and be with people. I love the fact that I'm able to be alone and to recharge, and I've really grown in that aspect of my life. But, you know, I don't go out enough. And I know that like life has kind of got crazy. I mean, you live in Washington D.C. Some of my friends are up in Ames, some are in Des Moines. Angie, she has kids, but it's like you don't get that time back. And maybe it'll be different. I don't know. Everybody, it's just about what you're willing to sacrifice. So like I told myself, you know, this summer, I'm just going to put all that work into me. Like I took the pain of the relationship ending with Jaden, and I just put it into myself and started working. And then I saw, you know, all these improvements. But at some point you got to look at your life and be like, well, 24, getting older, and I would appreciate being around my friends a little bit more often.
Yeah,
So, like, it's a balancing act, and I feel like you're never going to get it right. You got to try and be like 60-40 and know that they're going to interchange with each other.
Yeah, it's such a balancing act. Oh my gosh. Like another balancing act in my life, to just like go off on that tangent. I have a very weird job. Like, because the thing is, like, in a lot of ways, I have I do not work a 9 to 5. In fact, every day I work a different shift. So like, for instance, tomorrow I work from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's a closing shift right now. That will get extended. But right now, 10 to 6 is closing, and I close 1 day a week. Tuesday, I turn around and I work 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Wednesday, I work 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Thursday, I think this Thursday I work 7 to 3 again. And then this Friday I work 6 to 2 again. So while that is beautiful when you need to get your Virginia State inspection done on your vehicle, because you don't have to wait in line because everyone's at work at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday, you know, it sucks because like, you know, one of the things that like, I have this group that I get together with on Thursday nights. And because of work schedules and whatnot, the time that we set up to meet is 7 p.m. on Thursday. And this last Thursday, I was opening on Friday. So I'd work at 6 a.m., which means I get up at 4:15. And when you get up at 4:15 and you're going to take a very high intensity class at work, and you just want to function throughout your day, you should probably go to bed at a reasonable hour. So I felt bad. Like I had to dip out of, you know, this small group, you know, meetup thing at like 8:30. And they were like still chatting away. And I'm like, we start at 7, 8:30. I'm like, I'm sorry, I gotta peace out because I have to go to bed. And they're all super understanding. But then it's just like, it makes me sad that I can't be there. I also like, one of the ways that I really wanted to meet people was like, in DC, there are a lot of like young, like rec sports leagues. And I miss being an athlete so freaking much. Like I miss it. And there are like so many different leagues. Like you could join a dodgeball league. You can join a kickball league. You can join soccer, volleyball, like you name it. They have a league for it. But the thing is, all of the leagues meet on days that I teach, which means that I've already worked out for the day. And I know from experience what happens to my body when I work out 2 days a week consistently, or 2 times in a day consistently. And it's not pretty. So then I'm like, okay, well, you know, I also was like, hey, maybe I want to get into boxing again. But the boxing gym that I found, they have outdoor boxing. I love outdoors. I love boxing, and you're going to put them together. Okay, I'm there. Sign me up. It's on Wednesdays. And on Wednesdays at work, I help out with a leg day class. Yeah. I'm just like, then I'm like, okay, so I want to meet people. I want to do these things, but I also can't just say to my full-time job that I do for a living, yeah, sorry, I can't teach HIIT today. I got to go to boxing later. Like, so it's like this huge balancing act of like, you know, how do I meet people through, you know, a sports league, or like my cousin and I were like, what can we do? Like, you know, like we should like do a sports league together. And I was like, well, Fridays are a good day. If they meet on Fridays, I could probably do a Thursday, but that's going to change next month to a Tuesday. Like, it's just crazy. Like, I teach so many different times per week, which I love. And like, it brings me so much joy to teach Group X. Like, I could literally be having the shittiest day ever. I go into Group X, I teach a class, and I leave, and I'm like cloud nine. I might be dead, and I might sit there and stare at the wall for 5 minutes, maybe 30. My coworkers will vouch. Sometimes it's 30. But, you know, like, I just like, it recharges me. It like makes my day better. But it's also like this balancing act of like, I want to have a social life, but I also have to get up stupidly early for work. So how do I balance this? Like, how do I make friends with people that have normal 9 to 5 jobs when I don't have a traditional 9 to 5 job? And I also can't necessarily meet people through, you know, physical activity stuff unless like it is more low key, or it's on a day that I don't teach, or, you know. And then I'm, you know, juggling the balancing act this week of like, my aunt and uncle are coming into town and they want to take me and my cousin out to dinner. But the next morning I open at 6, and I literally cannot trade shifts with anybody. Like, I was doing the math and I was like, I had it all down. I was like, I'm going to switch with this coworker. And like, I had it all down. And then I was like, oh no, I can't actually switch because the guy that comes in at 7 doesn't have a badge. I have to escort him down because that's how visitors work at IMF right now. And the girl I was going to switch with, she doesn't have escort privileges. So can't switch. So now I have this balancing act of like, I have to tell my aunt and uncle, I'm going to dip out on dinner early because I have to be up at 4:15 tomorrow. Like, it's this weird balancing act. And I'm not going to lie, it creates a ton of anxiety for me. Like, I was literally driving this morning and like, my heart was pounding, like trying to figure out how I was going to get through teaching a class on Monday, working 10 to 6, getting off work at like 6:10-ish, depending on when people leave the gym, going to dinner with my aunt, uncle, and cousin at 6:30-ish, and then being back home and ready to go to sleep at like 9, and taking a shower somewhere in there so that I don't stink when I go to work the next day. Like, it's this huge balancing act, and it's causing so much anxiety, and I can't do anything about it except for just like go into this situation and do my best, because I tried to like move things around and that's just not going to happen. So yeah, like, it's such a balancing act. And then yet, like, when you don't feel like you have it like just right, there's anxiety. Like, if the scale's this way and you want it to be here, like, there's anxiety with that, and it's hard. Like,
Well, and
it's so hard.
I feel like you and I are kind of the same. I mean, our issues with anxiety might vary, but you sound very much like an OCD person. And the issues with OCD people, like, I think they're brilliant. I think they're brilliant in what they put their mind to, like what they commit to. But some of my biggest struggles as well is just like that all right there sounds to me like you're trying to find control. And
Oh,
the more control that you try and place on your life, the more out of control it actually is. And that's been my biggest challenge, is like just trying to tell myself, hey, like, you don't have to control everything. And maybe, you know, don't overbook yourself. Maybe just do like the things that are important today, and then leave the shit that doesn't have to get done and do that tomorrow. You know, I do my power list, which is kind of like a to-do list. And then, so like every day I have like the 5 things that I really want to get to. And then on the right column, I just do like reminders. I'm like, oh, you need to spread some gratitude. You need to think about gratitude. Like, what are you grateful for? You need to do your stretches. You need to do some thought stopping, which is CBT technique, to like level out all that shit that goes on in your head. And I just lost the thought. Where was I going with that?
You're trying to not control things.
Yeah, so like on the left side, I got my to-do list, but what was I gonna do with the power list? Oh, so now on the weekends, I don't even do power lists. I said, fuck it, dude. I used to do it on the weekends. That's how crazy I was, is I would write a schedule on the weekends and I would have a to-do list. And I mean, there's still things that I do on the weekend, like, you know, I may clean my apartment. I'll still go on my walk. I'll water the plants in the apartment. You know, like today I needed to shave up my neck because I knew I was getting on this call with you. But it's a lot less stressful. I feel like during the weekdays, you know, I'm just like kind of like I got all this energy and all this tension, and now I'm working full time. So I'm at COC Monday through Friday, 2 to 10 p.m. And so I'm trying to get all the things I want to do done in the morning, and then I got to go to work. So the weekend is finally that point where I really get to like try and relax. But still, I feel like for you and I don't know how you are. I'm speaking for myself though, is I've created this monster that now cannot really relax. I have gotten better with it. I can relax more than I used to. But even on the weekends, you know, like I'll start like thinking about shit that hasn't even happened yet. So like 3 weeks down the road, I'm going to Utah and I'm already thinking about like the what ifs and the things that could go wrong. So it's kind of the same. You're trying to plan out your whole day. You're trying to make sure you get to all these things and you have enough time to do this, and that. And it's just overwhelming. So, I mean, that's why I asked you in the beginning, like, you know, what has your anxiety been like and what have you learned and how do you try and taper it off? Because you can't, I mean, really, like, honestly, none of us have control over our lives. The only things that we have control are the things that are in our domain, and the shit that's outside of our control, we should try not to think about. But I know that OCD people, that's not how they think.
Yeah,
We're
I'll
trying to
be honest.
everything.
I'll be honest. Like, I resonate with all of that so much because, like, I have my to-do list. The one thing I will say I have gotten better about, and this weekend I think was a good sort of test of that, if you want to call it that, is I'm slowly learning how to fill my cup back up when it gets empty, if that makes sense. Like, I go through the week and my job is very much I give to other people, you know, and I love that. Like, I love it. I literally, like, I just want to be the light of positivity to other people in my job, in, you know, what I do. I want to be one of the best at what I do in my job. And I feel like there are times where I feel like, you know, I had a little stint where I'm being thrown a lot of adulting things. Like my I won't bore you with all of this, but there were some issues with my DMV appointment to get my license, my car titled, my plates for Virginia, because I still have Iowa plates. There were some issues with that. At the same time, I was trying to deal with like paying rent and contacting the previous tenant of my room because she needed to sign paperwork, and none of my other roommates could contact her because she has blocked them. You know, like, there were a lot of things. And for a while, it just felt like I didn't get to do anything for me. Like, I get off work at, you know, 2, 3 p.m. I have so much of the day to do something for myself, you know, like, whether that's just Netflix and chill, whether that's read a book, whether that's go for a walk, you know, like, honestly, taking a shower is definitely in there because after work I'm disgusting. But, like, you know, like, there are times where I feel like I haven't done anything for myself. Like, I've done everything for other people. I've done other things because they needed to get done. Like, it wasn't, I knew it would feel good after I did it, but, like, I didn't want to go to the DMV. I'm still dreading it. I have my new appointment for October 6th and I'm just like, oh no. But, you know, like, there are things like that where I just, like, I don't want to do them, but I know I need to. And I feel like this weekend, it was sort of like, this was one of those things where it was like, initially this trip sounded fun, but like honestly, by the time I got to the end of the week, my cup was empty
Yeah.
because I had just given it all out. And now I'm sort of learning that like while I have this big long to-do list, like there are some days in my planner where my to-do list is the entire day. Like it takes up the whole day section. And
Fuck.
and a lot of it
Bro.
is stuff that just doesn't have to be done that day. So I'm trying to get better about saying, look, this has to be done today because it needs to be done by tomorrow. This is something that is going to be an ongoing thing. And this can get pushed off to a day where you don't have as much on your plate. And like, you know, like I needed my tire pressure light came on last weekend. Hate filling my air with, or my tires with air. I hate it. It's one of those things that I would like outsource it to other people if I could. Like when that light comes on, my heart sinks to the bottom of my torso. Like hate it, hate it, hate it. And I know I'm going to feel better when I do it, but I don't want to do it. And it came on and I was in denial, and I did push it off a day because the weather was drop dead gorgeous and I wanted to go for a walk. My favorite podcast that I listened to, they had just aired a new episode, and it was like, long story short, it was about the whole like Gabby Petito case. If you're up on the trends with that, I was like, I sort of live in a bubble and didn't really know about it. So I was like, hey, let's go for a walk. Let's listen to this new episode of the podcast. Like I'm down. And I put it off a day, and honest to God, I don't regret that. It was a beautiful day. It was an amazing walk. I felt like it sort of recharged me a little bit because that day at work had been just a little heavier than some other days. And so, you know, that was what I needed. And so I'm sort of starting to figure out, you know, in this balancing act, how do I accomplish what I need to accomplish, but also keep my anxiety low and keep my happiness high? And some days that's just not going to happen. Like, to be honest, my DMV appointment may fall on the day that I also have to, you know, find a dentist, which I still need to do, find a general practitioner, which I'm working on, you know, like things that I don't really want to do, but I know need to happen. That may happen. And there are going to be days like that, but I have been really trying to work on, in the grand scheme of things, keeping my anxiety levels low by prioritizing things that make me happy, but also still putting in something every day that's sort of like a, I know you don't really want to do this, but you'll feel better when it's done. Like if that happens in that day, it needs to happen. So like, yeah, that's.
And like you were saying earlier, a lot of this comes down to momentum. I think like once you just get going, you feel, because people think that motivation, you know, they wait for motivation to strike to get things done. And honestly, it's not really like that. Like you just have to get moving. And in that battle, once you get that first thing accomplished, then you have more motivation to get other things done. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's why I've become a big proponent, not only of religion, but the philosophical teachings from the Stoics, because they talk about getting the hardest thing done first thing in the day. And honestly, I mean, I believe that there's a lot of impact and weight and momentum that comes with that. And I've also, I mean, there's a lot of helpful tools like with the power list. Like I've started to do things that, so like for instance, I always put on my power list now to like read my cork board, because that's where I have like my goals and all the things that I want to accomplish and what I'm striving to be. That's fucking easy. That takes like maybe 2 minutes. And I think having kind of sort of like easy checklist items just kind of reinforce you to keep going. Um,
Mhm.
so, but like you said, I mean, I think everything is just a balancing act. And as you get older, I think you get more in touch with yourself and you realize like some of your bad habits for us, both of like these OCD tendencies, is we tend to just like overload ourselves. You know, you stretch yourself very thin. And if you're not careful, you get yourself into those moments in time where you're really just depleted. And then you're not really at an efficient state of mind to deal with life's natural ebb and flows of like adversity. And that's, I think, you know, one of my biggest realizations is like, I mean, I've come a long way in my mental health journey, but when I struggle, that perfection side of me like freaks the fuck out because it's not perfect. And it's like, but it's never going to be perfect. Nothing in life is perfect. And any sort of adversity or challenge that you go through is, I mean, it sucks in the moment. Like my mind gets obsessed with it, but once you get through it, you're stronger as a result. So, I mean, I applaud you because I'm terrified to move out of state, but I know I have to do it. I know I need to do it at some point. And if I come back to Iowa and have kids, great, but I need to have that experience or I will not feel complete, because then I'll at least know, because I tried. I got out and I faced the things that bring me discomfort and fear.
Yeah, I will be the first to tell you, as someone that left Iowa, well, I'm not born there, born, raised, all that. Like, I lived there for 15 years almost. And like, so I lived a good chunk of my life there. I have so many memories there. Almost all my friends are still there. Like, so yeah, I mean, I miss Iowa, but even on the lowest of the low mental health days where I have cried 3 times because I am lonely, I miss my family, I miss friends, like, you know, whatever. Even through the tears, I will tell you, I do not regret moving here. I really don't. It is the best thing. It's, you know, go back to gut feeling. This was the move that needed to happen. This is the move that I know I'm going to grow. Like, I look back at like when I moved to college, and from the day that I moved on campus as a freshman to the day that I left, you know, midway through senior year, thanks COVID. You know, like, I changed so much. And yeah, there were days where I cried and I struggled and I was miserable. But there were days where I was on cloud 9. Life had never been better.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like, I feel like this season of my life is that. Yeah, there are going to be days where I'm going to cry. There are going to be days where life sucks. But you know what? In the grand scheme of things, this is where I'm supposed to be. And like, I honestly think that like this move was one of the best things that ever happened to me. And I hope that when you make your move out of Iowa, whenever that happens, wherever that may be, that it is the best thing. And that even through the tears, you can say you don't regret it because you know it was meant to be and something good will come out of it. Because it's honestly like, it's scary as hell to move out to a place where you have, I mean, I have some people that I know here, like my cousin lives in Maryland. My dad's friends are here. My mom's college best friend lives in Alexandria, which is like not that far from me. But like, I didn't move here with any concrete friends. I moved with what I call a very, very, very loose safety net. It was like, if shit hits the fan, I have some people I know or people that my parents know. But, you know, moving away from what you know and starting over, it's hard. It is really hard.
Terrifying.
But the thing is, it gets better.
Yeah.
And it slowly you figure it out. Like, you just sort of take what you've learned from your experiences in life. Like, you know, the first time that you decided to try a new coffee shop in Des Moines, you take that and you're like, okay, so when I move to wherever I'm moving, maybe that's Utah, you say, well, it was easy. I just went to a new coffee shop and I found some people there that I liked, or I found some amazingly good coffee that like didn't make me shake or smell colors, but you know, like you take little snippets from what you've learned in your past and you just sort of apply them and hope things work out. And through, you know, trial and error, you learn some new techniques, which is helpful. But
I think that's why I'm so open and receptive to adversity now. I mean, even though my brain kind of goes chaotic, I know that like for a moment in time, so like the last 2 weeks I've been struggling because Samantha and I just, you know, I don't even really know how to explain it. I mean, she's a junior up in Pella, and she just overloaded herself with her schedule. And then so 2 weeks ago, she was down in town and she was watching the Steelers game with her dad because they're big Steelers fans. And she was texting me back and forth, and she told me that she felt like she could not give me the energy, the effort, or the time to like actually, you know, work on a relationship. And I was like, damn, dude, that really fucking hurts. And it kind of reopened that wound. Like, I moved on from Jaden, but I feel like every time you have a relationship that doesn't work, it kind of reopens like all those scars that you have. It's like it's healed over, but there may be some scabs, and then it starts to dig again. And I know like it wasn't my fault. I mean, it's really just timing, but that's like, I think that's one of the hardest things to cope with. And I've asked God, now that like I'm religious, it's like, so if it wasn't the right timing, then when is the right timing? But it's put me in this place of struggle for the last 2 weeks. And I mean, of course it would. It's a breakup, you know? And instead of like letting the wheels fall off, these moments of adversity are actually fucking beautiful, because I mean, you don't envision yourself getting out of it, but then you do. You ultimately will. I mean, you've gotten through every situation that has come across your way, as have I. I've seen way worse days up in Ames, so I know this is nothing compared to what I've been through. It still sucks, but that adversity is just like armor. It's just like fucking sharpening your armor and your sword, and I'm thankful for it, even though it sucks, because I know all these moments are leading up to initially that leap, because every sort of thing that we go through is uncomfortable, and it changes us as a result. I don't think you should like willingly put yourself through pain, like painful situations, other than like working out and stuff like that. But pain's good for you. Pain, I mean, if you handle it in the right way and you channel that energy and put it inside of yourself, you change as a result, like you said. And you have to, like you said, rely on the lessons that you've learned in the past. But I don't know. So that's my outlook on adversity.
Yeah, no, I don't want to like, I will say I'm somebody that I do think that maybe not everything, but most things have a reason. Like most things happen for a reason. I think that most things, I mean, you don't have to explain the reason, but there is a reason for them. And I have to wonder if maybe things didn't work out because you're not in the right place. I mean, I was in denial about the fact that I wasn't in a relationship. I was pretty sure I was ready to date again. I'd sort of worked through all of my past stuff during COVID. That was one of my missions, was during COVID. I really wanted to sort of unpack my first relationship, which was emotionally abusive. I wanted to sort of unpack, you know, the relationship I had after my first one in college, where it was a good relationship, but there were some issues, and he was not the one I was going to marry. And then I rebounded after him and sort of needed to unpack, you know, all of that. But I mean, I told you, I've had this gut feeling for the longest time that I was not going to meet my future husband in Iowa. I was not going to meet the next man I would date in Iowa. Like, and part of it is, yeah, timing sucks, but you're also not in the right place. Maybe you meet the girl that you're meant to be with after you take the leap.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, not to hypothesize too much, but I felt like I already started taking those steps of growth before I met Samantha, but Samantha was kind of like the icing on the cake. Like, it was like, oh, this was unexpected, but it's great. I mean, it's just, I guess it's frustrating because I felt like we connected on every level. Like, I mean, every level imaginable. You know, she's religious, she's a virgin. I mean, it's very rare to find in today's world, like girls that age that are like that. And we both had this ambition and this drive to get out to the mountain states. And so she said, like, as soon as I graduate, I'm going to move out there. And I was like, damn, dude, like I'm already ready, almost ready to move out there. And so we connected on all these levels. And I guess that's the frustration. And that's the thing that maybe I'm not necessarily accepting of it yet. Like you said, you were in denial. Maybe I'm still kind of in denial. I mean, it's only been 2 weeks, so it's still pretty fresh. But I guess that's why I have a hard time, is because I felt like finally the pieces were coming together. And I realized one of the things that I still do and is not good is that I have expectations of other people. And it's hard, dude. Like, it's so hard not to. We were talking for 2 months, and I felt like that's a pretty long time to be talking. And I felt like I never pressured her. I felt like I never put her in that situation to be like, hey, we got to be in a relationship at this point. I was actually kind of unsure of it, like even 3 weeks ago. And I was like, if I don't know what it is by the time that we go to Utah, she was going to fly out to Utah. I was going to drive and then pick her up. I was like, if I don't know now, then I'll probably know by the time we go out to Utah. But then everything kind of unfolded. And so, yeah, I don't know. I guess it's unsettling to think of, oh, was it just timing? Because then that fucks with the moving on process. You're like, nothing was really wrong. We weren't toxic. I wasn't with a girl that had a bunch of trauma in her past that she hadn't sorted through. I mean, she had been through bad relationships just like we all have. So there's going to be triggers like that, but yeah, I don't understand why. And sometimes you don't need to know why. That's the thing. Is like it could just be timing. She's busy. We're in completely separate areas of our lives. I've graduated college. I'm working a full-time job, and our schedules were opposite. So she was busy like throughout the day and then early afternoon, and that's when I'm getting most of my shit done before I got to go to work. And then I'm at work from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., so I can't text her back. And it worked for us in the summer. We would only text each other like 2 or 3 times a day. And she was okay with that. You know, like I'm saying, this is so rare. I've never found a girl that was okay with that situation. Most girls want you to be like, maybe not attached to your phone, but they feel that they're not a priority if you're not texting them back enough. And so I'm not trying to get on here and complain to you about all this, but you have been a person that has always given me really good perspective and insight. I mean, fuck, I think probably the first time you saw me cry was before you left, and I was talking about Jaden. Like I'm a deeply emotional guy. I've gotten better at handling those things, but I fucking care for people, and especially people that I'm close with. So like when that shit happens, you know, can't help. I took it a little bit personally, but
I mean, okay, here's my 2 cents on all this. I do think that I'm no expert, but this is my own experience. I do think that in your past, you've dated girls that have a very similar background. They've all had, you know, some not solid family relationships.
mm-hmm.
They've, had some rough past relationships. And that led you to come to the conclusion that maybe this is the problem, is that I'm at a different place than they are, and I can't give them what they need, nor can they give me what I need. And I've been there. I settle into my patterns of the type of guys that I date. But I think that there will be people that come along, and the timing may not be right, but a lot of things will add up. And I feel like they almost give you hope for what's out there. Because before meeting that person, I mean, before you met Samantha, sure, you knew that there were well-adjusted girls out there, but you didn't know that there was a well-adjusted girl out there that had a lot of things you didn't realize you wanted in a girl until you met her. And yes, the timing is not great. And I'll be honest, I don't know if it would have worked unless you both put some serious work into it, because being at, her being a junior in college and you being out of college ready to start the next chapter of your life, those aren't really compatible stages of life. It can work if you're like, I just met my soulmate, like, let's do this, it's going to be tough, but we got this. But I also think that there are times where, a really good guy or girl comes along and they're sort of just there to give you hope for what's out there. Like, there is somebody out there for me. If this person exists, surely other people exist like them. And let's be honest, when you meet that person, there's not going to be a compromise on the timing of life. Like, it's going to work out the way it's supposed to. Like, I don't know, I had a guy that I dated that I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize that there were guys that were like excited to introduce me to their parents. Like, I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but like, I'm not a horrible human being. Like, you don't need to hide me in the closet from your parents. Like, and that was the thing, is like, I had only ever dated guys that were like that, I mean, it wasn't really mentioned. Like, you'll meet my parents on this day. It was kind of like, when I dated in my second relationship, I had been dating the guy for almost a year by the time I met his dad. I met his mom when we had been dating for like, oh gosh, like 4 or 5 months. And I literally only met her because she went to a track meet that was in Cedar Rapids. And I went to that track meet as well. And we sat there and froze our butts off together to watch him throw. Like, it was like, it was just weird. Like, he wasn't super like gung ho about it. And the guy I dated after him was like, I cannot wait for you to meet my parents. I cannot wait for you to meet my grandma. Like, I'd never had that before. I was like, guys like this exist? Like, what? And ultimately, things were not right for a whole number of reasons with this guy. Things were just not right. But there were aspects like that where I was like, this guy is comfortable around my parents when he met them. And he's gung ho about me meeting his parents. Like, it was almost just like, this is like, the best is yet to come. Like, this is sort of a preview, but it's going to be even better than what you're seeing right now. Like, I don't know. That's been my experience. And maybe that's what's happening here. I don't know. I mean, I do believe that not everything needs a reason, but I like things answered in my brain. So like, I'll come up with reasons. And I feel like, when the timing's right and when you're in the right place at the right time, when all the divine powers that be put you and that girl in the same room and you get that gut feeling, you're like, I got to talk to her.
Yeah.
It'll all work out.
Yeah. I don't know. And I'm sure I'll get to that point. Again, it's very early. And yeah, I think like with people that have OCD is like, I'm just trying to figure it out. You want an explanation. And I mean, she did give me an explanation. She texted me. My only beef with it was, okay, well, why can't you meet me in person and talk about this? Because every other issue that we had, we would talk about it in person. And she actually like would work through the issue with me, which I had never had from a girl. And so I was so surprised. And it was like, the weekend before things ended, she came over and she met my family. She already met my mom and my dad and my brother, but she came over to my grandparents' house and we had like a little cookout, and it was good. I mean, in my head, which again, this is probably where I went wrong about having too many expectations, but you meet a person like that you gel with. It's kind of hard not to develop those expectations. I was ready to ask her to be my girlfriend, and then it's like, and maybe she came to that realization the next week, and maybe she wasn't thinking that way before, but then she also told me that she's not sure if she's emotionally available. And I didn't know that. I mean, she'd been thinking about it for a week or 2 weeks or whatever. And I never got that. I never got that indication. So maybe that's something that she was hiding. But yeah, like you said, I mean, I think it's like when you're in it, and then when you break up or whatever, you can't necessarily see the signs. I don't think she was a toxic person, but I'm sure as the weeks progress, I'll look back and be like, oh yeah, like, and there were some things right there that were not going to help us, especially that now there was this distance that was created. I mean, it's only 45 minutes from here to Pella, but you still got to put in the work if you're going to be far away from a person. And I mean, we just literally could not get timing right on texting or calling. But, I think in relationships, it's huge to make compromises. So like when I went on full time, I purposely went Monday through Friday because she told me that on weekends she was going to come back down and hang out with her family, and her mom has a cleaning business. So she was going to work for her mom on the weekends. So I made that compromise, and like thinking about her, like, hey, I'm going to go full time Monday through Friday, but I'm going to keep my weekends open so we can do something. So yeah, I don't know why it happened, but I'm under the same belief as you. And this is why I became religious, because I was like hurt and devastated when Jaden and I fell apart. But then all this shit happened this summer. And then I met Samantha and I was like, you think you've hit rock bottom, you can't see a light forward. But as long as you handle it properly, deal with your emotions, talk to people that you respect that are going to give you, because when I talk to you or you're talking to me about your issues, I don't ever feel like either one of us are complaining. I feel like we're venting in a healthy way. And that's the difference. That's what you need to move forward. And so you know, once you get through that, there's a whole series of lessons and growth inside of that. And like you said, I mean, I had no faith that there were girls out there like her that existed. And I'm also very proud of myself because I don't think enough guys have the fucking balls to go up to a girl in a coffee shop and ask for their number. She told me, she's like, you know, most guys my age at college and shit, they're trying to slide in through DMs or like on Snapchat. She's like, I knew you were different from the moment that you asked me for my number. I was like, dude, I got rid of my Snapchat. I got rid of Twitter. I don't have TikTok. All I really get on is Instagram. So yeah, it's a process of learning and growing, but can't help but say that it fucking hurts when it happens.
Oh, there's no denying that. I mean, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt a whole lot,
Mhm.
but there are better things coming.
Yeah.
Like it's not easy to say it in the moment, but eventually you're just like, there are better things coming. And then you just have to be patient and wait for those better things to come. And I'm not a patient person, so I'm right
No,
there with you.
no, patience is so hard, man. That's the last thing I do is patience. I mean, I've gotten better, but fuck, it's hard, man.
It is so hard. Oh my gosh. I feel like COVID really, I mean, I'll be like maybe one of the first people you'll hear say this, but like in some ways I am grateful for COVID. COVID really taught me that I was not in control. COVID taught me that I had to be patient. Like I think it was a little over a year to the day that I started in the job that I interviewed for. Like my interview was in like end of June, early July, and I started July 19th. I had to be patient for a year.
Yeah.
I've never been patient. Like, yeah, sure, I have some patience that I've learned through coaching little children in swimming, which is helpful. But, you know, like, I feel like there's patience, but then there's situational patience. Like, I'm not a patient person when it comes to waiting for something, like the expectancy. Like, I'm not good at that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something I'm good at. And right now, you know, I did that for my job. Now I'm doing that for friends,
Mm-hmm.
for a significant other to come along. Like, and it is hard. It's not easy because on the one hand, you want to like distract yourself from like, you know, having to wait. But on the other hand, you're like, but should I be doing something productive in the process? Like, should I be like working on myself or maybe, you know, focusing on my career a little bit more or focusing on the friendships that I do have and building those up? And, you know, like, yeah, it's patience is, when they say patience is a virtue, like, man, it's tough.
I mean, do you ever like think about how far you've come in a year though? I like you're talking about
Oh,
at this point, last year I was doing this thing. Like I feel like time is so fleeting, and when I take a moment to actually like sit back and reflect on how far I've come, I'm like, holy fuck, dude. I mean, like not even in a year's sense, I feel like I'm a completely different person than I was like in May. Like I feel like
yeah.
I've completely shifted who I am, and I think that's what, you know, maybe gives me hope moving forward too, is like, well, you know, what are you going to be like in the next 3 months? What are you going to be like in the next half year? And again, this is why people are so stupid with our issues and the things that we go through, is like our perspective is always off when we're going through it. If you look at all the things you've gone through up until this point, or if you could put your life on a timeline, you would see that the things that you're worrying about right now are insignificant in the next 5 years, because you're going to be in a completely different place. And when you're able to like rationally detach from your emotions, that's when you don't get wrapped up in the turmoil. That's something that I'm still learning how to do, is like when I go through the adversities, like I attach myself with it, and I think like, oh my God, like I'm losing my fucking mind, I'm going crazy, I'm going back to how I was in Ames. And it's like, no, like it's just a hard moment. Like we all go through that. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's kind of beautiful to have this conversation with you, like seeing how much we've both grown and like what we're learning. I mean, it's fucking wild that you're out in Washington D.C. Like I fucking miss having walks where we go around
I know.
and just shoot the shit, start talking about journaling. You know,
Dude.
you're a special person, Natalie. I will say
Oh,
that
thank
right
you.
now. I'm glad we became friends. You know, from working.
Same. Same. I honestly, I would give anything to walk around Buxton Park. I would give anything to do that right now. Like, I love where I am, don't get me wrong, but like there are moments where I'm like, dude, Sunday afternoon walks in Buxton Park, those hit so hard.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's be honest. If you live in Indianola, you should probably go walk in Buxton Park on a Sunday so that I can live vicariously because I just like there are things that you just don't realize you'll miss when you leave until you leave and you're like, oh my goodness, I missed that. But
Like there's no
yeah.
like home.
Oh my God, no. Like I was literally thinking the other day, like one of my favorite things in the whole wide world is to go on walks with people and talk.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite people to do that with after you, of course, is my mother. And my mom lives 4 hours away now. And it's $30 to drive on the freaking Pennsylvania Turnpike to go see her, which is worth it. But, you know, like it's not something that I'm just going to do all the time.
Yeah.
And it's not something I get to do very much. But like, I miss that. Like, I miss going for like insanely long walks and talking with people and like, you know, enjoying the fresh air, the sunshine, all that. Like, I miss that so much. And I especially miss like the scenery out there. But oh, well, I mean,
Well,
got to
I'm
move on.
sure you'll come back at some point. I mean,
Oh,
you can't
for
stay in
sure.
Washington forever. You got to come back and see your friends.
I know I need to plan like a trip, but I'm also like, I was casually looking at ticket prices while waiting for my number to be called at the DMV a couple weeks ago. And oh my God, ticket prices are so expensive. Uh-huh. Yeah, I don't have, I, the thing is like right now with work, I'm in this like weird, I guess it's not totally weird, 90-day introductory period. So basically right now I'm working and I'm accruing sick time and vacation time, but I can't actually use any of that until 90 days. So like on 90 days, which I think is like October 15th, I know that's when I switch over to my insurance through work. That's when I will get to like on my thing where we log our hours, like that's when I'll see a number in sick day and vacation. And unfortunately right now I have you know, it's all a balancing act, right? I all of my Christmas traditions are in California with my family, all
Oh
of them.
yeah, yeah.
And I want to go. And so my dad bought tickets for my whole family but me because we didn't know like what my situation was going to be. And I am a little bummed. This is going to be the first year that I'm not able to go out for the entire time. I don't have that much vacation time. And so, you know, almost all of the vacation time I'm accruing right now will go towards December. And so then it's a balancing act of like, I have these random weekends, you know, where, for instance, I get Columbus Day off, I get MLK Day off, like I get random days off. I have Veterans Day off. Like I have a lot of days off, but it's not, those would be the times where I'd be like, I can justify a trip because I have, you know, this significant amount of time off. And then I would only have to take one vacation day or two. So yeah, it's going to be a balancing act, but I will definitely come back to Iowa. And I want to prioritize maybe next summer if I can swing it. I want to come out for State Fair and balloons because I'm not going to lie, that was where I was the most homesick, was that little week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're out here, I don't know what my plans are. I mean, that's kind of, again, where I've grown and saying, like, I'm not going to have too much control on my life. I told myself that if I'm still in Iowa by this time next year, which I was saying that in August, so if August rolls around next year and I'm still in Iowa, that would be the point where I'd reassess. It doesn't mean that I have to get out of Iowa before that time, but I would just be like, okay, you know, because I've been talking about Utah for a long fucking time. And that's why I'm doing the trip, is because, I mean, it may go well, it may go shitty, and it's a chance for me to explore the land and then see like, hey, is this feasible? Is this viable? Can I actually do this? You know, if I get a good feeling from that trip and it's amazing, I think that's going to give me more of a reason to move out there. But yeah, if you're back, we got to do something, because I imagine I'll probably still be here. I mean, I don't have anything that's pulling me out of Iowa just yet, which is kind of scary. I mean, I look forward to the future, but uncertainty is real, because like I'm working full time at COC. I got my degree and I'm not using it just yet, but like nothing has really come across my path. So again, talking about how like things happen for a reason, I have had no reason to leave. Like the job is kind of toxic, like the work environment is a little toxic, but I can put up with it. Like I've grown a lot. Like the amount of bullshit that I can handle has grown. Like when you're dealing with that shit every day, I mean, you could really honestly handle anything, because you're competing with, not competing, but you're dealing with people. And you have to, again, this is going to be like the title of the podcast, Balancing Act. You have to know when it's time to speak up, and you got to know when it's time to hold your tongue. And so that's one of the things they teach us with people supported that are having agitations or behaviors. You never match their intensity or their mood. You bring them back down to a calm state. But then, so like I had a situation that I'm not going to go into too much detail about, but last week with my coworker, I finally blew up on him because I was holding so much pent up aggression inside of me. And he did some shit that I felt like he was trying to take advantage of me. So I blew up on him. So it's, I mean, again, with anything in life is just, you got to figure out when to make the move. And so you decided to go to Washington, D.C. because it was the right move. And look how happy you are.
I am very happy. I miss Iowa. I miss you. I miss all my other friends there, but I will say it was worth it. And you know, plane tickets exist for a reason. My car still runs. And
I think as we get older, maybe we'll have a little bit more free time. It'll be interesting to see where you're at in the next 5 years, and same thing with me. Like, I can't wait till the days that maybe, you know, both of us have kids and our kids are hanging out with each other. I come out to Washington, D.C. Hey, let's go see Aunt Natalie.
Dude, honestly though, if you end up in Utah, I was like halfway.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we just like reunite in Indy.
We'll just clash in Iowa when we meet up.
So if you're not in Iowa in August next year, we'll just meet in the middle and we'll go to the state fair in balloons.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Get to see our families and whatnot.
Oh my gosh. It'll be so crazy.
All right, dude. Well, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to watch some football for Sunday, but it was so good catching up with you. We'll do this again, you know, whenever our schedules align. But I just want to say right now, like, I appreciate the fuck out of you. You've been there for me over the last few years, ever since we became like really good friends. And I always, always, always appreciate your insight towards these issues. And I never want to come off as like I'm complaining. I just know that like you and I look at things similarly, but I've always appreciated your opinion, and you know, I feel like it's helped guide me in the right direction. So thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate you. You are doing amazing things. You will do amazing things. Keep up the good work, buddy.
Thanks, man. All right. I'll see you soon.
See ya.
Take care.